Hello and welcome again. I apologize for this cut. I don't know what happened, but my YouTube studio just crashed. As I said, hello. I'll be repeating some of the things, but I hope you don't mind because we're just starting the stream. Let me welcome you to the Signs You Work for a Toxic Boss and How to Deal with a Toxic Boss live stream. Thank you again for joining me in. And as I already told in a few previous videos, a toxic boss, just generally, a bad boss is a top reason for many employees to quit their jobs. You know, a few years ago, I made a video on toxic boss signs, speaking from my personal experience and when I was caught up dealing with an extremely toxic manager. I needed help in understanding the situation at that point. And there was hardly any content related, there were hardly any videos related to this subject. So I thought I'd be helping others if I share everything I learned from that awful experience, an experience which I would not want anyone else to repeat, to be honest. And it looks like my Toxic Boss video actually inspired many people, many YouTubers to make similar content. I'm quite pleased about it. It means you continue to seek answers, people continue to require information on it. So that's why I decided to go ahead and to make a live stream about it. If we haven't met before, I'm Marat from EMMOTION, myemotion.com. Look me up on LinkedIn. I've been working in HR and in recruitment for over 14 years, and on this channel I help and contribute to your professional growth, such as to acing your interviews, to gaining confidence as a professional, learning to deal with corporate politics, difficult situations at work without losing your focus or giving up your goals. So go ahead, as I said, say hello in the chat. This is my favorite part, is actually interacting with you. So I'll be saying right back, hello right back shortly. I don't want to be a talking head, so please ask your questions, leave me your questions during the stream, and I'll respond as soon as I can before the stream is finished. As you know, my live streams, especially the first ones, had technical difficulties, and I just had another one. So if everything is working fine, if you hear me well, if you see me well, please give a big thumb up. And this way I am reassured that the video has no issues. There are no issues with the stream. As I said, what I will do, I will be sharing key signs on how to recognize toxic boss behavior. And I will also share some signs on how to deal with a toxic boss. All from my personal experience, all from the experience also that I've had in coaching professionals and in helping them going through a similar situation that maybe you are going through right now, or maybe you have gone through previously. So let me say hello right back. Hello Ashat, hello Honey, good to see you guys. I also had Obliv. I hope you will join in to the stream before I finish. Let me go ahead and proceed to the subject. Toxic bosses, as you know, they are the origin of a toxic work environment. Because you might love your job, your company can be great, your benefits can be incredible, but having a toxic boss is a huge problem. And it is a problem not just for your career, but for your overall health and peace of mind. Okay, good to see you, Obliv. Hello. And Mark Blanco, hello. Good to see you guys. Let me proceed to the sign number 1. How do you detect a toxic boss? Toxic bosses are always right. Are you working for the manager that knows everything? Do they have answers to absolutely everything, while you are always wrong? And they will, of course, promote and they will have favorites, especially those who say that they are great, that they are doing everything right. And they will demote those people who don't. In fact, anyone who would disagree will immediately go to their blacklist or to their gas chamber. And if they make a mistake, they will never acknowledge it, because it's easier for them to throw others under the bus instead of fixing their own mistakes. If this rings a bell, toxic boss is your manager or is your boss. Proceeding to the next sign, it is quite connected with the previous one. When you are never good enough. You know, a true leader inspires and motivates their team. A toxic boss really installs negative emotions and makes the team doubt their abilities. No matter what you do, you will never be good enough. They will always find faults in your work. They might even tell you that anyone could have done this job better than you. And instead of feeling that you are growing, you are actually feeling like you are shrinking, like you are becoming less and less. And this is their way to make you feel low so they can maintain a certain control over your self-esteem. The next sign is when they micromanage you. They might assign you a project, then remain constantly involved in every single step. Because toxic bosses really insist on having a say on everything you do, on any aspect, every single aspect of your work. Because they have hard times letting go, they have hard times trusting their team members to do their job. And this, let me tell you, this suffocating micromanagement becomes really, really demoralizing. They micromanage you at all the time, at all times. You might even receive emails or calls during weekends or messages during weekends or your days off, and eventually it is getting in a way of your ability of doing the job properly. It stops you from becoming yourself. It stops you from giving 100%. And this is something that they like, because micromanaging boss will love damaging your self-esteem in all sorts of way, because they will want you to believe that you are not skilled enough to be able to work independently, and that you can't be trusted with an important mission, which is completely wrong. They will also, this is the next sign, they will also not like for you to get constructive feedback. They will never give you constructive feedback. You will never get a recognition for your work, let alone helpful advice on how to improve. Any conversation about a promotion or about your development within the company will immediately get shut down. When was the last time that your boss actually acknowledged that you did something well? Do you remember that? Or your ex-boss in this case, if you've suffered from a toxic management before. Did they acknowledge something that you did well? Even if you actually reached your targets, they will still find something wrong with it. They will not allow any exposure within the company for you, and they would want you remain silent, or they wouldn't really want others to know when you've actually done a great job with something. Or even worse, they will try take credit for your work. Does it ring a bell? You know, the manager, any manager, has to be giving you constructive feedback on a regular basis. It is part of their job, and no one can grow without constructive feedback. So when all the feedback that you hear from your manager is actually negative, it means your boss is toxic as hell. The next sign, continuing to the sign number 5, when they put you down in private or in public. It's demoralizing and humiliating to have your boss say something demeaning about you in front of your colleagues or direct reports. And since they are never interested in hearing other people's opinions, they will deliberately shut you down if you speak up. This is how your toxic manager has an excuse to micromanage you even more. Because aside from tarnishing your confidence, they will also want to damage the confidence that the other people might have in you. They actually undermine your self-esteem due to their own insecurities because it makes them feel more powerful, especially when you see that you stop thriving in whatever you do. When they see you doing less effort at work, when they see you giving less, it is actually giving them a confidence boost. And no matter what the reason is, no one really deserves such kind of treatment. Continuing to the next sign. The next sign is also connected when your boss goes even further, when your boss starts bullying you. Many times we might not even realize that our boss is bullying us because our self-esteem is not at its best moment, because we try our best to do our job, to impress them, but it never works out. So we start questioning our own self-worth. Maybe we are not made for this job. Maybe our boss is right, but you are fooling yourself. If you think that, the self-doubt and questioning yourself is actually fooling yourself. Because when all the feedback that you get is negative, when they play mind games such as projecting an intimidating behavior, for example, threatening to fire you, this means your boss is actually a bully and an abuser, and it is their way to project power and control. You know, other ways that your boss can bully you is when they invade your space, when they give you intimidating looks, when they try to isolate you from the rest at work, when they will also make some jokes, for example, at your expense. Sometimes they will also tell you that you can easily be replaced by anyone, and belittling you or belittling your colleagues on a regular basis. You know, bullies might also gossip, or even worse, they might lie about you to damage your reputation because they will want you to fail. It is their way to make others believe that you deserve the unfair treatment you are receiving, which is so unfair and toxic. Okay, proceeding to the next sign. Let me see, I have some comments over here. I believe I still have the bus tire marks across my back to prove it. Oh, I bet. My ex-boss used to complain that nobody tells them when he's doing well. Kind of funny because he never said anything positive. All he did was say what you were doing wrong. Definitely rings a bell. Keith, toxic. He even told everyone that his wife and daughter were damaged and he only cares about his son. Extremely toxic, and actually quite a weirdo as well. Proceeding to the next sign, to the final sign, when they install toxic culture and culture of fear. You can actually feel, when you feel the negative vibe, whenever a toxic boss enters the building, all the positive spirit is immediately sucked out of the department. And every move that you make or your colleagues make are being watched as if you were in a prison. People start disappearing. People start to get fired. Employees that get fired don't get any valid or real reasons for it. That's how the toxic culture and the culture of fear is installed. That's why everyone stops saying what they really think. And no one but the boss would speak during the meetings because people are afraid to get shut down. People are afraid to get humiliated in public, or even worse, to get fired if they speak up. And toxic boss would use this fear as a means of control. They won't feel good without it because they don't have the self-confidence to see people who work for them to feel strong and to feel capable. In a fear-based culture, it's also complicated to stay human because everything that you would do that would seem human, for example, for you to show some empathy, to show some compassion to your colleagues, or to someone else will be immediately taken as something unprofessional that you do, or even worse. Mark Blanco. I have a boss that tells other employees that they are on PIPs. They talk bad about them. When they do say something wrong, cusses a lot. People are slowly leaving the workplace. That's completely normal. That's what I say. The turnover is extremely high in toxic places. Now let me go ahead and proceed to the ways that you could deal with toxic bosses, because the bad news is that things don't usually improve, and the longer you stay, the worse it is, the more negative implications you will have on your well-being. So let's say the first step to prevent the toxic manager and their toxicity from affecting our health and peace of mind would be showing the maximum of patience. I know it sounds complicated, and in general, miracles do not exist. But there are some strategies that you could really put in place to survive a toxic boss on a short term. Because the first and the most important advice, I know this might not seem like an advice, but it is. The first and the most important thing for you is to make sure that you get out of the toxic place as soon as you can. It doesn't sound as help, but it is, because this is the best possible solution. Many people really, and myself as well, I can confess that the longer I stayed, the worse the situation became. I understand that not anyone can leave, and everybody's circumstances are quite different, and it's quite complicated to leave due to this reason, especially if you have the bill. Everybody has bills to pay, but the negativity will absorb you, and the negative energy will absorb you, and it's going to become completely exhausting to actually have a good, successful job hunting strategy. That's why there is no quick fix to this situation. So aside from leaving, which is the first advice, let me give you some other tips that will make the situation slightly more bearable. Okay, the first tip would be deliver your results. Because toxic bosses don't really care about your well-being at work. They don't care about the negative impact they might project on the team, on yourself, on anyone else. They don't care if people hate them. What they do care about are the results, especially if these results really make them feel more, let's say, these results make them look good in the eye of top management. If they actually can get credit for these results, they will actually appreciate it and maybe leave you alone for a few days if you really deliver what they want. Afterwards, what you can do, what is really important is for you to stop being afraid. Because growing a thick skin or confronting a bully boss really does nothing to improve your situation. Anyone who worked for a toxic boss really knows that they can impact all the aspects of your life. They will lower your self-confidence, your self-esteem will go away, but it's not going to be as damaging if you stop being afraid. If you stop being afraid, if you stop working in a constant state of fear, it's going to improve a lot your situation. Because think about the worst thing really that can happen to you. Think about the worst thing that might happen to you if you stay in a toxic workplace and if you stay with a toxic manager. Getting fired, this is really the worst thing, aside from the toll on your emotional health and on your physical health. But getting fired, I think anyone who is staying longer in toxic places knows that they can get fired at any time. So imagining this worst thing that might happen to you, it's going to be easier for you to deal with the situation because you will stop being afraid. At least you will stop being afraid of the situation, and you will stop being afraid of your day-to-day routine. Because the worst thing, getting fired, you are already prepared for it. You can already deal with it. So this is actually going to make you feel more confident, and it will boost also your productivity, knowing that the worst thing, you just get fired. Because people that stay working with toxic managers, there is actually a study, and the researchers did studies on people that suffered bad management, that suffered a toxic boss, and the studies show that 60% of people that had toxic bosses were more likely to suffer a heart attack or other life-threatening conditions. So there is no reason to keep being afraid. Stop being afraid. And also the next thing you can do is also to stop blaming yourself. This actually happened to me when I was dealing with a toxic manager, with a boss that constantly belittled and bullied the whole department, not just myself. There was a point when I was actually blaming myself. I was blaming myself for not doing enough, not being smart enough, not being competent enough. Or I actually, after 4 years within the company, suddenly I felt like a newcomer. Suddenly I felt like, oh, listen, I feel like actually I've just joined this place because to my boss, this is something so easy to do, but I can't do it because also the expectations and the deadlines that I've been given were completely unrealistic. But at that point, I didn't realize it. At that point, I really thought that maybe this was my fault. I didn't realize that there was absolutely nothing that I could do to be successful in this situation. Nothing, except for getting out of that place. And getting out of a toxic place, because to me it felt like if I left the company and the job which I was happy with, I worked in a company for 4 years. I was actually well considered by many different departments I collaborated with, by my colleagues. But I felt like I would be a failure if I would leave the place, if I would get out, or if I would give up my position. I felt I would be a failure, but it's not. I mean, forget about it. These are the false impressions. The whole thing is giving up or leaving the place is not a failure. It is actually a survival mechanism, because toxic people don't change. Toxic bosses will not change. So stop expecting them to change. As I mentioned before, sometimes some things will make situations more tolerable, and sometimes, suddenly toxic boss has shifted their attention to another colleague, or maybe even to another department. This could be, there might be some temporary improvement, but you will lower your guard. And don't lower your guard, because false hopes, thinking that your manager will change, are not going to help. At any moment, your boss will refocus their anger on you again, and you are back to the square one. Also, think that the toxic managers are really toxic long before they've actually joined your company, long before they started managing you. So it isn't really your responsibility to change them. It isn't your responsibility to help them see their errors, or to help them change, or to help them improve. This is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to survive. Your responsibility is to actually cope with this place and to manage to overcome this situation. So that's why the next advice that I would give you while dealing with them is learn to stop to care. And how can we learn to stop to care about them? Is actually thinking that this situation is temporary. This situation is, there is just certain amount of time that you need to spend at this company. There is certain amount of time that you need to spend with this toxic boss. But these people will never be leaders. These people will never be examples for you professionally. And there will be many other jobs that would give you that motivation, that would give you that confidence, that would make you feel like you are actually doing something productive. They will, some other leaders will come and will change your perception, believe me. Also, think that all the extra hours, all the efforts that you are making for this company, for this toxic boss, are not even worth it. It's not worth to push you doing much more, to go, let's say, to do late hours, or to travel, or to give 120%. This is not one of those jobs. The toxic manager and the toxic work environment, really, they do not require this effort, because no amount of work and working hours are going to make things better, or are going to make things easier. That's why stop caring. This is probably the most important advice, and I wish I knew it before. Stop caring. Start focusing on positive aspects of your life. Maybe your family, your friends, anything that, or maybe your hobbies, anything that would make you feel positive and strong, and treat such job as a way of covering your bills, as a way of surviving the situation temporarily, because the other jobs will come along. Other jobs will come along, the jobs that will truly matter to you, the jobs that will make you feel like you are actually growing. This is not one of those jobs. And you know, I would also want you to think karma. Some people don't believe in karma. I didn't believe before either. I do now. And you might ask me why. You know, I know that my manager, my ex-manager, actually got fired a few times afterwards, after being my manager, and actually spent some time in unemployment. And I think, I don't want to wish negative to anyone, but I believe that bad people get what they deserve, and the karma is biting them right back. That's why the best you can do is, instead of absorbing the negativity and absorbing that toxic energy, instead just try to focus on getting your work done the best way that you can, and try to focus on leaving the place without looking back. It's important to recognize what you can control, because you can't control your toxic boss behavior. So that's why you can't really control what they will do, how they would speak to you. What you can control is your own reaction, is everything that you can do to cope with the situation or to leave the place. Those are the things that you can control. So these would be my tips in helping you to survive toxic management. And let me go ahead and proceed to your questions. Okay, let me go ahead. I see some new people joined as well. I see people in the chat. Adsa, how can I stop caring about my boss being so mean to me? Good question. I just told you that the best thing, or one of the best things that you could do, is to stop caring. And there are many ways that you could stop caring, really. The most important one is the one that I mentioned, is to stop being afraid. Because when you stop being afraid, when you actually show that you don't care anymore if you get fired, or at least to yourself, if you think that way, if you actually think that the worst thing that you can mm, that you can receive or you can get from this manager is actually for them to fire you, you will stop being afraid and you will stop caring as much, because you already know that that the end is near anyway. So I think this is going to help you to stop caring. Also, stop caring doesn't mean that you should stop doing your job. I think it's important to fulfill your day-to-day responsibilities and to do your job, to actually feel yourself as someone useful, to actually feel that you are better, worse, but you are managing, you are keeping up with your responsibilities. But the less emotionally involved you are, the better it is for you. So stop caring is one of those ways of being less emotionally involved. Let me know if that was clear, Atsa. If that is not clear, then go ahead and ask me the further question. Let me go ahead and see. Akshat just say, please say my name. Of course, Akshat. Good to see you here. Stanley, I think we do not have to get mad about who we are working with, not being overworked and not getting burned out, because the only way of because that's the only way of being sustainable in my job or in any job. That's true. It's a pity the boss who isn't getting the heart attack. Yes. Okay, how to handle the situation where boss steals work ideas and selling it to top management. Okay, that's actually interesting. I mentioned that some of the bosses will actually try to bully you and will actually try to get credit for your work. It does depend if you have a connection with upper management. Do you usually talk to them? Do you have any, have you ever had any conversation with top management? If you've had some conversations previously, then maybe one day you could just come to them and tell them, okay, listen, how about that idea? Did you like the idea that I gave, or did you like the suggestion that I made? And they would probably wonder, which suggestion? And that's when you could tell them, listen, I made this and this suggestion, or I gave this and that idea. And this is the way that they would understand that your boss is actually presenting your ideas as their ideas. Try that as a strategy. If that doesn't work, think that you are not going to stay for too long with a toxic manager anyway. So I would say it's more important being less emotionally engaged and, let's say, focusing on surviving and on getting out of that place, on leaving the place, rather than actually trying to convince the upper management that your boss is stealing your ideas. Okay. Stanley, how do you deal with a stressful situation? Okay. Are we speaking about this kind of stressful situation when your boss is micromanaging you, when your boss is actually being toxic and projecting negative emotions and projecting negativity towards you? As I said, stress is definitely going to make your life worse, to make your health worse, and to actually add pressure to your life in general, to your relationships. You will even bring this negative vibes and this stress home and other places you go. So the first thing is trying to isolate yourself from the stress, trying to isolate yourself from the negativity. If you focus actually on positive aspects of your job, of your life, and you would start appreciating those small things that you have. I know it sounds cliche, but it's not. I promise you, because these are the things that help me overcome my situation. When I started focusing on those things that made me happy, on positive aspects of my life. Anyone has positive aspects in their lives or positive people in their life. So spend more time with them. Appreciate more those small things that you have, maybe that you don't see. Your day-to-day life, you might be overworked and you don't even realize that you have these things in your life. It's going to make your situation a lot easier to deal with. I hope I replied. Otherwise, continue and go ahead and ask me your further question. Another question which I have is, my boss calls me on weekends with things that could honestly wait until Monday. How could I approach this issue without upsetting my boss? I think it's going to be hard not upsetting your boss if you stop responding to his calls or to her calls. If your boss is giving you a call on weekend and you're actually picking up a mistake, that's already a mistake. Don't pick up. It's not your responsibility to answer your phone on weekends. They can leave a message on your voicemail, or they can wait until Monday. If you pick up, you actually invite them. You are actually inviting them to do this more often, to actually keep calling you on weekends, keep getting in touch with you on your days off. Stop responding. This might cause them to become more angry. This might cause them to tell you something negative on Monday, that you didn't respond the phone, but it's not your responsibility. Anyway, you are planning to leave this toxic place anyway. Why should you care if that is your case? But if your case is different, if you are not dealing with toxic manager, if you are actually dealing with a manager that just micromanages you a little bit just on weekends, maybe you could just have a chat with your manager and explain them, listen, I can't really have my phone on me all the time on weekends. So could you please email me and I'll respond as soon as I can on Monday? Or could we have this talk on Monday instead of on weekend? Try that out. Depending on your situation with your boss, depending on how you get along with your boss. So if you are not getting along, you know that things are not going to get better, just stop caring and stop responding. Okay, so proceeding to the next question. I assume toxic means bad. I wonder why we don't call it as experience it. I don't really understand the question. Sorry, Bernat. Good to see you, by the way, but I didn't understand your question. You are so right, they don't change. I have the resigning letter with me every day in case I can't take it anymore. I will just throw it in his face. Okay, that's a strategy. Good, at least you know that there is a deadline and you are actually carrying the resigning letter with you. Stanley, okay, I believe making your recommendation to Stanley. We can't change them, but we can show the mirror. Okay, let me go ahead and proceed to the next question that I have it in here. Okay, how long does it take to feel normal again after you left a toxic and demeaning work environment? What can I do to speed this up? You know, there is no exact timing on getting over the toxic situation because everyone goes through this process differently. But when usually when the sad and negative memories are replaced with some self-love and forgiveness and positivity, it means you are already over the difficult and sensitive period. As I said, what I would really recommend you to start building your confidence, to start building your strength, and of course starting a new project as soon as you can. If you can't find let's say, a full-time position, maybe you could volunteer, or you could start a part-time position, or maybe you could actually start your own business. Why not? All these things will help you get over the situation as soon as possible. Okay, so let me go ahead and see if I have the next question in here. How to stop worrying and thinking that the boss thinks that you are worse than him, that you are below him, that he is the king and you are nobody. Okay, Alisa, it's an interesting question. I've actually touched something similar during the live stream. You won't actually be able to make them change. You won't be able to change their way of thinking. So instead, you realize this is the way that you feel because of your lower self-esteem right now, because of being micromanaged, because of being constantly said that you are not good enough, that you are not doing this work properly, that you don't know this and that you are not a good employee. So if they make you believe that, you will start feeling that way, of course. Sooner or later, you will feel that way. So the best thing you can do is really actually realize that you are dealing with a toxic manager, with a negative manager that no matter what you do, it's never going to be enough. So that is already going to be useful for you to not feel this way anymore. They can't, because the more they make you feel like you are nobody, as you said, that the less that they make you feel, the better they will feel themselves, and they will. This is why they do it, because toxic bosses usually have insecurities that they are dealing with, and that's why, because of their insecurities, they want others to feel less. They want others to strive less. They want others to become less. If you stop caring and if you stop showing that you actually feel that way, and if you stop feeling that way at a certain point as well, things will improve, believe me. Okay, let me go ahead and proceed to the next question. Can I know that my future manager and I would get along? What questions can I ask my manager during a final interview? Okay, that's a good question, actually. That's a good question. Knowing and finding out if you and your manager can actually work well and can actually have a good chemistry, a good vibes. It's complicated to be 100% sure that you will be getting along with your manager, because people can show you one side of them and won't show you the other side, so that's why it's complicated to really know it for sure. But what is really important, to ask as many questions as you can. Ask them about their leadership style. Ask them about their vision for their team. Ask them, what do they expect from you? What is the most important thing that you could do to be successful in this job? All these things will give you clues and will make you understand if your boss is somebody that you would be able to work easily with. And it's in your hands really to accept the job or not. If your future boss gives you positive vibes during the interview, being respectful, responding to all of your questions, that is going to make your decision a lot easier. Okay, so let me see. Here I have Venugopal. Cheers, Marat. Great. Abliv is making a recommendation to Alisa. That's great. My boss recently stood in his office balcony and used a megaphone to yell, "Stop singing. It's not a disco." I believe you had quite interesting situations with your manager, I can tell. you should actually share with us also a few strategies that helped you out. Okay, continuing to the next question. Guys, go ahead and ask me questions and doubts that you might have, and I will respond. I'm proceeding to the next question right now. How can I make my boss to talk respectfully to me? I like these questions, because they remind me of when I was going through this and I was constantly questioning, how can I make them respect me? How can I make him like me and to really change their behavior with me? You can't make them to talk respectfully to you if they are being like that all the time with everyone. There is one strategy that you could use though. There is one strategy that you could use whenever they tell you something negative, whenever they try to belittle you and to project something, to project negativity towards you, to tell you something that you are not doing properly. Maybe you could just smile without really disrespecting them or without being negative, without raising your voice. Just smile and tell no, and tell them that you don't want this negative impact in your life, really. Like, for example, if they tell you that you are not good enough or that you are not managing the project well, just tell them, smile and tell them, I don't really share your opinion on this. I think I have done this and this quite well. I think I've managed this and this quite positively, and see what happens. Okay, proceeding to the next thing. The best thing that you can learn if you work in a hostile work environment by a bad manager is to learn gray rock technique. It means you don't react, don't show emotion. It's like you didn't even hear it. That's a good strategy as well. Stopping to care and to actually stopping to show that you are emotionally involved, that you can be pressured, that you could be influenced. Those are the things that definitely help you out. Akshat, I forgot my question I needed to ask. I received positive vibes from you. Oh, that's nice of you. But remember the question because it's important. It's important to respond to all of your questions and clear all of your doubts. Okay, so proceeding to the next question. What can I do if my manager belittles me in front of my colleagues and my colleagues laugh at it sometimes? Okay, that is not really a good environment. If your colleagues actually let your boss bully you and they laugh when you are being undermined and when you are brought down, definitely not a good sign. I think there is not much you can do about your colleagues or about your boss, but what you can do is change your way of perceiving it. As I've already some of the advices that I've given, and I see that in the chat as well. Obli, for example, mentioned as well. The less emotionally involved you are, the less emotions you show. If you don't show them that you are affected, if you don't show that this actually makes you feel bad. I know it's complicated because we are human beings. We are not robots. We can't hide emotions. We can't hide our feelings. But you need to try and do this, or try as hard as you can to do so. It's going to help you out a lot. It's going to make them feel like they don't control you anymore, that they don't control your self-esteem anymore. That's something that makes them feel a lot more powerful when they actually control you, when they control your emotions, when they see that you are upset, when they see that you are feeling negative or sad. That's when they will feel more powerful. So don't let them control you. Don't let them control your emotions. it's hard, it's easier said rather than done, because it's a lot easier for me to say it, and it's really complicated to do so. That's why if you follow the steps that I've described in this live stream, it's going to help you out a lot. I also have a few more videos on how to manage toxic work environment and negative emotions at work. I hope it's going to help you out as well. But the best thing you can do if you are being bullied, if you are being belittled, if you are being constantly questioned and if you are constantly being given negative feedback, leave. There is nothing that would make your situation easier unless these people are gone from the company, of course, unless your manager is switched to another place or switched to another department, or unless your manager leaves the company. If that doesn't happen, things are not going to improve. Okay, so I think that's it for now, guys. If you have questions, ask me. Otherwise, I really appreciate that you've stuck around with me today. It's been complicated. I had a few technical issues. As I said, I had issues with my YouTube studio. So I'm so happy and so grateful that you've stayed in, that you've participated, that you've watched. So very happy to do this stream. Meatloaf cat. That's great. And you have a cat in your username. So that's even better. Okay. Very happy also to see you guys live. And I hope to see you next Sunday. Yes, Atsa. For those of you that joined in later, go ahead and rewatch the stream. And I hope these tips will be helpful. I'm going to release a new video in a few days, and I'll be seeing you next Sunday, I hope. Okay. Akshat, Atsa, Gabrielle's Tears, great to see you again. Meatloaf Cat, Star G, good to see you guys.